I want to talk a little bit about recruiting subject matter experts. So how many of you are involved in recruiting subject matter experts? Okay, so this is probably the best part of your job, maybe? Okay, I'm guessing not. Yeah, this is just a challenge in the industry. It definitely is. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, things that have helped over the years. I don't have the panacea for sure. If I did, that would be a whole other deal. So one of the things I've noticed over the years, there's definitely a difference between people that have academic and say product knowledge if you're in the IT software space versus people that have on-the-job knowledge. So one of the things that differentiates a really good credentialing program is that instead of measuring book knowledge per se, you're really measuring knowledge as it's applied on the job. And you really want to measure that type of knowledge on a credential to provide value in the marketplace. If I can just go into a book and pull some questions out of the book, basically, that's not going to provide a lot of value, most likely, to your consumers. So it needs to be on the job experience. And one of the things that I found is a lot of times if you've got people that are in academia, they can be a very helpful addition to the team. But you want to make sure that your team of SMEs isn't stacked with the academicians, because a lot of times, again, they're going to have kind of more of a book idea or a theory to things sometimes. Then you'll have another group of people that are in your team and they're like, oh, well, that's great, but that's not really how it works on the job. And so you want to make sure you have that. Likewise, when you have people that are product oriented, sometimes they'll be very involved in the features and they won't realize how those are used by the job role on the job. So that's just something I've seen where, it's great to have some of these people on the team, but make sure the most of the people on the team are those that are actually doing the job and on the job role. That said, also I found that there are often times when it is very helpful to have what I call embedded SMEs. And what that is if you're developing a credential for an IT software company, for instance, how do you get a heads up that there's changes coming down the road and that your content's going to need to be updated? One of the things that I found with a lot of your big IT software companies is more and more the credentialing organizations are working much closer with a product group. In fact, a lot of times they'll try to get a subject matter expert from the product group so that they get a heads up that, hey, this change is coming down the pike. The reason they need to do this is if you're going to make the change properly, you've got to figure out when training is coming out. You've got to figure out when you write the items and when you can beta test them. There's a whole process and timeline that should happen. So the earlier you know of a change going forward, the better. Likewise, if there's regulatory changes that might impact the content of your credential, the earlier you can get the heads up, the better. Because then when you're in that item writing session, you can decide and I've been in these item writing sessions, they're like, well, we know in 3 months from now, that's actually going to change. All right, do we want to measure that? Okay, what do we want to measure about that? So again, having people that are involved as subject matter experts are also very much involved in either product or regulatory board or support function, like I said earlier. Help desk people, if you're working in IT software, any sort of support function that might be in a hospital, any of those groups of people deal with it day in and day out. So they can really be a great source of information. The other thing I would definitely suggest is to have at least one subject matter expert with the same level of experience and expertise as the minimally qualified candidate. I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend this. The analogy I like to use is none of us remember when we first started using a mouse on a computer. And yet all of us, when we first started using it, were going all over the screen. It seems so simple now, right? That's how your experts are. So another example is had a client that they were a technology company. They wanted to develop a sales type of credentialing for their technology. They brought in a bunch of sales engineers to develop it. And lo and behold, when we got done, it was way too difficult for the salespeople. So we had to switch it to, okay, this is for the sales engineers. So what having a person that fits that minimally qualified candidate description in your subject matter expert group does is it gives you a reality check. Know that your subject matter experts are experts by definition. They're always going to want to make things typically more difficult than maybe it may need to be. So you just want to make sure you've got somebody in there that says, okay, I'm actually a 2-year person in the job. I'm pretty good at being a 2-year person. I would definitely fit the minimally qualified candidate as far as my standard performance, and I wouldn't know that. So that's just a really good way of kind of level setting your experts. Okay. What did I do? Hold on a second. There we go. This is new. Also, another thing that's really important is picking for fit. I used to work in selection, pre-employment testing. We'd always say you hire for skills, you fire on fit. And that kind of goes with subject matter groups as well, in the sense that I've worked over the years where we've had someone that had a very strong personality that was very disruptive to a group, that I had to go back and talk to the director and just basically say, like, you need to partner with this person in the team, and then we need to like kind of move this person off. Because when you watch the group dynamics, everybody just shuts down because everybody's getting kind of annoyed. So if you see that situation, you are much better off to nip it in the bud early than to kind of let it fester, because you're really going to upset your subject matter experts. Know that a lot of them are not going to come and tell you that's the case. And then you're going to lose people. So it's not worth it. If you've got somebody that's just being a bully or being condescending toward the other subject matter experts, not letting them talk, you're going to end up with lower quality product and you're going to lose your most valuable resource. The other thing I would say is work ethic's important. I've also had groups where it's like I get together with them and then they want to socialize and they're distracting everybody else. And so that's like, all right, you work over on this side by yourself. Work. And then last but not least, recruit more SMEs than you need. I know you guys will probably want to throw tomatoes at me for saying that, because it is difficult to do. I will say in my 20-some years of working with different subject matter experts, especially when it comes to item writing, there are some people I think I could spend 24 hours a day with, and they just will not get it. For whatever reason, there are going to be some people that are really good at it, and there's just some people are not going to get it. Those people are still very valuable. They often can review items or work in teams with other people. But if you try to force them to write the items on their own, it's just going to be a very difficult struggle for them, and they're not going to enjoy the process. And as we all know, it's not as easy as people might think it is anyway. So I try to early on identify, who's got the skill set, and then pair people or use them in a way that's going to best utilize their strengths. So getting the most out of your subject matter experts. So a couple different things. I call these the SME games. They're kind of like the Hunger Games. No, not quite. So there are a couple different things I've watched through the years and I want to caution you guys about. One, I call it the last SME wins. This is where you have a group of like 6 to 8 subject matter experts. They go through a technical review. They say this item is great. And then you send it on to one person for some other reason, a subject matter expert, and they're like, this item's horrible. It's not measuring the right thing. So by letting that person make the final decision, you've just negated all of those other subject matter experts. So again, you've got to be very careful. They're experts for a reason. They all have strong opinions. You want them to have strong opinions. But you also need to, again, their opinion, while interesting, it's not irrelevant, it's important, but it's need to be taken into context. So you need to be careful about that. I've seen that over and over again. And it's unfortunate because sometimes I'll look at the items and they're statistically great items, but you'll have one subject matter expert's like, well, I don't like the way this is worded. And it's like, so you need to caution people about the fact that it's one person that's saying that, or just a few, if you've already had a whole group of people that are okay with it. Any of you that have been involved in any sort of technical review knows that there's quite a bit of iterative process, and that oftentimes it's me that thinks they're right is not right. The dominant SME ones, this is kind of what I was talking about a little earlier. Sometimes you get somebody that's kind of a bully in the group. And isn't letting other people speak up. And what you'll notice from a group dynamics is people will shut down. And then that person's basically opinions are the ones that weigh out on things. So in those particular cases, I'm always very careful to go around and call on everybody. And to some degree, get kind of directive with that person as far as taking them aside and being like, listen, I need other people's opinions in this to make this a quality product. Calling on SMEs, different SMEs, to keep them engaged, kind of as I just mentioned too with the dominant SME, but especially if you're doing remote work, I always do round robin. I write everybody's name down, and then when they're on a call, I go around and call on them, because what you'll notice is some people get very quiet, you never hear from them, and you'll hear from the same people. So it does a couple things. It keeps them on their toes, keeps them from multitasking during virtual meetings, and it also helps make sure that you've got everybody's opinion in there, because some people are going to speak up and then other people get kind of quiet about it. And you want to realize that it's really everybody's opinion that's important. It's going to make your product a better product. Okay, another thing to get the most out of your subject matter experts, make sure they're focused on the minimally qualified candidate. I've already kind of mentioned that, but again, being experts, they're going to want to make it more difficult than it may need to be. It may be appropriate level of difficulty. You just want to reality check that, because there are a lot of times when I've gotten done with item writing or standard setting, and I knew that the bar was being set too high, and then we went to beta testing. It's like the stats bore that out. So other really important thing when working with subject matter experts, and I hate to have to say this, but I will, make sure that you have them sign their NDAs, as I'm sure all you do. In your NDA, though, also, make sure that you have a prohibition on working on training or test prep activities for a certain amount of time, if not indefinitely. There have been a number of times where we worked with subject matter experts, and then companies, organizations found out later on that they were actually doing a test prep company. You also need to be, just like your test taker agreements, you need to be very specific as far as which behaviors are prohibited. It's amazing to me that people don't understand, like, sharing content's not okay and putting it on the internet and so forth. But sometimes if you don't spell those things out, people will pretend that they don't know, or maybe they really didn't know. But the more specific you can be in your NDAs as far as your prohibition and what is acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior, the better off you're going to be.